coach here with the Be Best You podcast, so you can become the best version of yourself. The idea is basically that if you're to lead others, you can't be a mess, right? So you've got to be working on yourself to become the best version of yourself. And I'm super honored to have Frank Viscuso on. Frank is a fireman, a thought leader in leadership, a keynote speaker, a prolific author, just all around a great guy. I was able to be on his podcast, which I will share that link to. Almost probably a little less than a year ago, I think now. Frank has also done some other work with a company I'm affiliated with, and I'm just super excited to get him on here and just kind of pick his brain. So, Frank, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, John. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too, always. And I'm super excited. I'm a big fan of your material. Being in the first responder fire world, a lot of the things that you post for your podcast are in that area, but you also post stuff about leadership as well. And I really love the correlation there. So what I'd like to do really is just if you can tell the listeners a little bit about your history, and how you got into this and what your main focus is as a keynoter, as a consultant, and the other things, and an author. So I'm going to leave it to you.
Yeah, well, listen, I started out just a kid from northern New Jersey, Kearney, New Jersey, kind of sandwiched between Jersey City and Newark, son of a firefighter. Right? What's that?
Isn't Kearney kind of like soccer country?
Oh, yes. It's actually Soccer Town, USA, which happened long before I was born. They received that. It's weird because we're Tree City, USA. Okay. And I don't know that we probably have the least amount of trees in all of New Jersey, but we're Tree City, USA, and we're Soccer Town, USA. Okay. And people used to come here from Scotland and Ireland, and they used to migrate to Kearney because of the soccer. Yeah. And we actually produced just from my age group, Tony Miola, John Harks, and Tab Ramos have come up in clubs for Kearney, and I went to school with Tony and John, who they both played Major League Soccer and World Cup. I mean, just great times. But I became a firefighter like my dad and my brother, and my brother and I both became deputy chiefs in the Kearney Fire Department. And through time, this is very interesting because you introduced me as an author, and I have several books, and it's very interesting because I have a novel, a tactical book, several books on leadership, and now a children's book coming out. Yeah. And so I don't think I go into any one particular category, but John, I want to share this with you. Yeah. I've never shared this on a podcast before. Uh-oh. But I've only shared it a couple times live. But how I became an author was a very interesting story because it happened after 9/11. See, where I work, my fire station, we have a clear, unobstructed view of the New York City skyline. And when 9/11 occurred, we could see the buildings on fire from the street, and everybody was called in to protect our town. And shortly after, we were released from work after 24-hour shift. About 30 of us went over to see if we can help. And the only thing I'll tell you about my experience at ground zero there is that, there's times in your life that alter your life. For example, life-changing moments like when my first son was born, life-changing moment. But another one was being over there. And for the simple fact of this, we actually, we were witnessing history in a way that I don't know if I comprehended it at that point. But what I was taken away from this was how quick life can change. Right. All these lives that were lost. And the couple of weeks following 9/11 and a short time I spent there, I started to reevaluate my life. And here's what I was taking away from this. I'm not living the life I'm supposed to be living. I'm living based off of that, just giving too much power to other people in my lives, meaning this, their opinions of me meant more than my opinion of myself. Wow. And right, that's what I took away from this. And I started to think, why am I living in fear? Why am I living in the confines of a prison that's built from other people's limitations that they set for me. You're not smart enough. You're not fast enough. You're not this, that, that. So I stopped doing it. I stopped listening to other people and I said, I want to write a book.
Mm.
And you have to understand this. I graduated in the half of the class that made the top half possible. Okay.
Oh yeah, familiar with that.
Right. So, I mean, my first book, I typed with these two fingers, and used the thumb for my space key. And I'm reading a book called, and I think the exact title might have been How to Write a Book.
Okay.
But it was a book. It was a book on how to write a book while I'm writing my first book, which was a true stories about New Jersey firefighters. And the long and short of it is, after I had the book written, I didn't know how to get a book published. So I went back to Barnes and Noble. I bought a book on how to get your book published. Told me I needed an agent. I sent out sample chapters to 50 agents by mail with return envelopes, received 50 rejection letters back. And I still have them in the other room because I'm the father of 3 boys, and I want them to understand that you don't have to accept no. You don't have to accept it, because I was rejected by 50 agents. And right now, you would listen. I mean, I think I have 3 best-selling Amazon books, and I have, and I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm just saying this to impress upon you that it was me putting other people's opinions below my opinion of what I felt my worth was. And when I got the book published, it was because I couldn't get an agent. I just started picking up the phone saying, hey, you're the publisher of this magazine, the editor of that magazine. I called my cousin who had a book published. How'd you get your book published? And one guy introduced me to a publisher, and that guy said, I want to publish your book. And nothing happened with the first book, but it showed me what can happen if you stop believing in what other people think you're capable of doing.
Well, ironically, as you were saying that story, there's a gentleman that works with us now. He's a Marine, was a Marine, always a Marine. They'll remind you of that. He's also a retired state trooper and also a volunteer fireman. And I gave him your book, Step Up to Lead, and he shared it with the local fire department. So as you were telling that story, he walks in the door, and I'm kind of, you can maybe see my arm moving, and I was having him come move a little bit closer, but I'm getting a little not choked up, but thinking about it. But this gentleman, he was also a first responder at the at 9/11, and he doesn't talk. He talks about it almost every class, or he references it. But I was listening to how you were not being hesitant, but you really don't talk a lot about it, but it impacted your life, and I know it impacted his as well. And Greg, would you want to just come in real quick? Sure. And I'm just gonna have him peek in if you wouldn't mind. And I asked him to wear his fireman shirt, so you can just peek down in there real quick.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Pretty good, Chief. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. It's good to meet you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't like to really focus on my response. I was up there pretty consistently I was assigned to the George Washington Bridge with my whole unit in the state police. And
you see a pretty face.
I was over there every 3rd day on the pile. And we have another gentleman I know I'm good friends with from Florida, does firefighter resiliency, Rick Scott.
Oh, I know Rick very well. Yeah.
Rick's a really good friend, great friend. But do you know a Rick Testa? Were you with North Hudson?
No, I wasn't with North Hudson. I was in Kearney, same county.
Okay, sure, yeah. But yeah, I still keep my hand in with the local volunteer department here in Point Pleasant Beach. And I passed your book after I had read it. We have a young captain, and he's young and he knows everything. But
he's gonna see this.
I've been around enough to know that if I stop learning, then I should hang it up, and
that isn't the truth. But here's what's funny about what you just said. When I was younger, I thought I knew a lot more than what I realized I knew as I got older. As I moved through, when I was a firefighter, before even becoming an officer, I actually thought I knew more than when I was a deputy chief. When I became a deputy chief, I realized how much I didn't know.
Sure.
I guess that comes with maturity.
I'm in that position of being the senior man, and I always stress as I continue, and we're a volunteer fire service, not a huge town, but we have our moments. I'm realizing and this comes with life, is I'm realizing I don't even know what I don't know.
Right.
And when you said something about other people's opinions, and a dear friend, it might have been Rick, said, "What other people think of me is none of my business."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chief.
I appreciate you. Hey, thank you as well. It's good to meet you.
We're gonna get you a signed copy of it.
Oh, thanks, Chief. I loved your book, and again, and I told the captain, I told Zach, the captain, I said, pass it through the line, because we're transitioning to a younger set of line officers.
Yep.
You know, the torch is being passed, and John, Coach gave it to me, and it was such a godsend. You know, I don't believe in accident. You know, there's something bigger than me at work here that put your book in my possession to pass it on. You know, passing the message on.
I appreciate that. You know, and what you just said is interesting, because I felt that with every book I was writing, I felt that there was something bigger than me that was a part in making this book happen. I believe in timing. And it's funny because somebody once asked me, how do you get all your speaking engagements? I don't have a speaking agent either, but I speak over 50 times a year. And honestly, I said, it's out of my hands. I go where I believe I'm supposed to go, and I deliver the message I believe I'm supposed to deliver on that day. And that's why I tell people my class is never the same class twice, because I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to say. I know the content I'm going to cover, but I don't know the stories I'm going to share until I get there.
Thank you again. Thank you so much. And again, for my experience there, and being in the you know, the business, we realize life can change in an instant, and it drove that home very deeply into me. Is I treasure each day that I'm blessed to be here. Every morning I open up two gifts, my eyes.
That's fantastic. Great outlook.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
I stick around too. Yeah, so Greg has been an addition to our leadership group. You know, being a state trooper, fireman, Marine, lots of other different stuff, and
he was one of the original guys.
yeah, and he worked, you know, back in the day. So, but I told him I wanted him to come over and listen in, and also say hello to you. So
That was really nice. Thank you for that
at
opportunity.
that moment, though, there, you know, you tell that story, and also too, it's been interesting. As soon as you said it about life-changing moments, it struck me because there was a couple other there's a couple books that I've been reading, and a couple of the guys that I've really been I actually did a couple podcasts with, and definitely I think you should as well. It's guy Clint Pulver. He wrote that book, and it was a teacher giving him a drumstick. There's a gentleman that you did with Jim Knight and his podcast partner, and I don't know if he shared, but his son passed you know, from cancer, and you know, he talks about, you know, that moment in his life where the doctors had told him that he had to say goodbye to his son, and he realized that outside that room there was people that didn't believe that, or thought that maybe there was another option in that moment. So what I'm saying is this idea that a moment in time can change your life and give you that purpose. Not that you want a 9/11 to do that, but I mean, it's giving you that purpose of writing and training and teaching and sharing and mentoring, and your material isn't just for firefighters. That's the thing that I think everybody, hopefully, who will listen to this, it is not a book for firefighters only. It's for anybody leading any team.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you on that topic, John, is I've led sales teams, very successful ones. I've led teams in sports. I've coached over 23 Little League baseball teams, and people might say, Little League, what's that? Well, Little League baseball in Toms River, New Jersey is practically a religion, you know? So, I mean, it's high level play. Right now, one of the teams I've been coaching since these boys were 7, they're 10 now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're young, but we've been coaching them from the age of 7 to 10, and they're right now ranked number 6 in the state of New Jersey. As a travel team, which is a big accomplishment because we're not an academy. We're not, well, you know, a bunch of people are paying a lot of money to come here and play, and we're just going to take the best. We're going to make a team, and we're going to, because that's what we're playing against. But these are just a bunch of friends that had some athletic ability that we told them, you know, if you work with us as coaches, if you work with us and follow this path with us, they're going to be elite players. Because it's a process.
Right.
And what we're trying to teach them has nothing to do with baseball. It has to do with life. If you put the time in, I got a picture in my backyard right here behind me. This backyard is where my son became a pitcher, because 2 years ago, at the age of 8, he says, "Dad, I want to be a pitcher on our travel team." And I'm the manager of the team. And I said, "No." And he says to me, "John," he goes, but I want to pitch. I said, "Listen, in rec, you can pitch. You can learn how to pitch, but you're not consistent enough.
Right.
You need to throw consistent strikes." And finally, I could see he's really upset. I said, "Do you really want to pitch on his team?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Then let's go in the backyard and throw 25 right now." I said, "Because once you get good enough,
Yeah.
I'll put you in that position, but you have to earn it."
Mm.
Well, he spent a year in this backyard
Yeah.
throwing, not every day, but at least 3 days a week, throwing 25 pitches to me. In the
Right.
winter time, we're inside doing balance drills, and he has become one of the better 10-year-old pitchers in this area.
Yeah.
And very consistent, and he loves being up there. But I remind him of this. It has nothing to do with baseball. That story has to do with work ethic. It has to do with attitude. It has to do with effort, because success, John, is transferable. If
Right.
you learn what it takes to succeed in one area, you're learning work ethic, you're learning how to overcome adversity, because every success story has three components. It's a dream, a struggle, and a prize. And if
So
you
it's a
learn how to
dream, struggle, prize. I love that. So dream, struggle, and prize.
and prize. Yeah.
Prize.
And matter of fact, one of the books I wrote, The Mentor, it's called The Mentor, The Dream, the Struggle, the Prize.
Okay.
And it's about overcoming the struggle, because the difference between those who win and those who lose, and I hate to use the word lose, but those who succeed and those who don't,
Okay.
is who can overcome the struggle, who can adapt, who can do whatever they need to do to go over those humps, around those barriers, and achieve the success that they desire.
Yeah.
And that's why I coach
Yeah.
these young boys and girls, because I want to teach them at the early age what I didn't learn until I was a little bit older.
Right. Well, two things I was thinking of. One, I'll start with the two and then go back to one. One of the things I learned was, in the business world, a lot of managers learn how to manage when they become managers. And I always, one of my crusades was, when you become a captain of a team, it's either the coaches assign you or the players vote you on. But I ask people all the time, when you became that captain, did you know how to captain? And the answer is always no. They figured it out on the job, which obviously that's the best learning. But I think what you're doing as a coach is you're teaching them fundamentals, baseball, the rules, teamwork, but also they're learning how to become a leader. They just don't know it yet. And I think that I think that at that level, if you can teach a kid to become a captain, they can become a better captain when they become a captain, when they learn it before they're in that job. That was the one thing. And then the second,
like anything, yeah.
If you could, expand on either one of these, but right away, as soon as you said, and I know the Tom's River, Mr. Tom Kunzman, I went to the family with the grammar school with the whole Kunzman family, and he was down there in Central Jersey, and you had Tom's River South, the Forrester brothers out of there. But it's because you're not a club and people have to pay to go there, and you're a superstar, and they're of course they're going to be ranked up there, but to be ranked number 10 from just a team of just town kids, what that tells me is culture, and what culture can do to draw. Organizations are going out right now and overpaying for anybody, but it's the people that have culture that's established. They're not looking for anybody. So here you are, you're number 10 in the state. You're not looking for kids. You're probably turning them away, and you're not even a club team. So
that's what's interesting too, is that they're young, and every year, what I'm watching is this age group, all the teams around us are holding tryouts to cut their weaker players and bring in stronger players. We don't do that. The only time I hold a tryout, and a matter of fact, I won't even hold tryouts, but the only time I look for a new player is if somebody leaves. And if somebody leaves, I have a call-up list of about 4 players right now. I'm going to one of those 4 and asking them first if they want to come over, because they want to be here. They're loyal to us, but I just don't have room for them right now. But if somebody can't play, we call one of them in. And so that's number one is I won't cut them, because it's about attitude. If you bring the right attitude and you give me your best effort, if I can't make you competitive with our coaching,
Right.
then it's on me, not on you. You're giving me everything you have.
Yeah.
So we're not looking to recruit a great team. We're looking to make a great team. And to
And you
your
know,
point,
but the
yeah,
same thing is what that does is you don't have to recruit because again, your talent is coming to you. And that's
yeah,
that's so huge. Companies don't understand that, or teams don't see that they're always looking for people. But if you have that culture, you don't have to look for them.
listen,
They
if you're always looking for people, even the talented people will end up leaving because again, you don't have the right culture to keep those people. That's what we're about. Let's
Yep.
build a culture where you want to stay. We're going to give you everything we have. You give us everything you have, and let's have fun in the process. I
Sure.
mean, do we lose games? Of course we lose. I mean, right now they're 10-0.
Mhm.
And I think they've outscored their opponents 124-21. So they're
So that
doing
so that
well.
first loss is going to be a tough one for them.
But
Emotional.
well, it's funny you say that. We just had a scrimmage and we lost in the scrimmage.
Okay, good.
And the coaches and I said, this is excellent. We need this.
Yeah.
It's a scrimmage. We lost to an academy team that we've beat many times, but we've lost to them. And we were playing around with positions too. I'm not too concerned with it, but we want them to have that feeling. My son Nicholas says to me the other day, well, let me tell you this. His brother,
Uh,
Frankie, he's on another travel team and they've been working very hard and they've been winning, losing, winning, losing, winning, losing. And they just won their first tournament and they earned it. So they celebrate. They ran across the field, jumped on each other, celebrated like they just won the World Series for Major League Baseball, which is the way it should be for a kid.
yeah.
Nicholas says, I got 9 championship plaques on the wall in my room. Nicholas says to me, Dad, why don't we celebrate when we win? I said, because you guys are too used to winning and you don't value it anymore.
Mm.
They value a great play. They cheer for each other. They're awesome teammates. But when they win a tournament, they just kind of jog off the field like Barry Sanders scoring a touchdown. But
Yeah.
there's something about that I like too,
No, absolutely.
right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they're saying, I've been here before and I'm going to be here again.
Yeah.
So I'm not too concerned with what I want them to be good people. See, we had a tournament recently where we were beating a team by probably about 12 runs. And my kids were now in the dugout and they're being a little bit, not all of them, a couple of them, they're being a little bit loud. And every time they're cheering for their team, they're doing all the right things, except I'm looking over at the pitcher on the other team and I'm saying, man, this kid's pitching really great, but our kids are on today. They're not always on, but they're on today.
Yeah.
And I'm watching that pitcher, and every time a kid gets a hit, I see his shoulder slump again. And I turned to my kids, and this is what I thought about, John. I thought about firefighters after knocking down a fire feel great. They had an adrenaline dump. They just went out there. They put out a fire. They did their job. But somebody standing there watching everything that they own
Sure.
just burned up in a fire.
Mm.
So you feel elated, and they feel devastated.
Oh,
And
never thought of that. Yeah.
right. So I've always taught my guys, I don't want pictures in front of buildings. I don't want to see you smiling and high-fiving each other in front of the fire. You can do that stuff at the fire ground. Somebody just lost all their possessions or some of their possessions. And even if they lost none of their possessions, they're scared to death that maybe they did lose something. They didn't get in there yet to check it out.
Right.
But I turned to my kids during this particular game and I said, hey, I want to tell you a story. Now, some of your listeners right now might say, why would he go in this direction? But let me explain myself. I said to him, you see that kid on the mound right now? They said, yeah. I said, I just want you to think about something. What if that boy on that mound right now just lost somebody he loved? They said, who? I said, I don't know. A family member, somebody he loved. And all he said was, Coach, can I please pitch today? And his coach said, you know what? I'm going to let you pitch today to honor that person you lost. And my kids just looked at me. And one of them said, who did he lose? I said, well, he probably didn't lose anybody. I said, but you don't know the story. I said, what I want you to do, keep talking with your bats, keep talking with your gloves like we teach you, but don't talk with your mouths.
Mm.
Because that boy up there is giving everything he has. And I would take him on this team in a heartbeat because he's not giving up. And my kids weren't being bad. They weren't being obnoxious. They weren't being anything. But that's what we're trying to do, is to teach them to talk with their play, not with their mouths, and not be somebody that tries to kick somebody when they're down, because a comment that you say that you might think nothing of as a kid could hurt somebody who's out there struggling. But I equate all of this together, John. I equate coaching to being a deputy chief in a fire service, to being a leader in business. It's all the same. Talk with your play. Give me the right attitude. Give me the right effort. Learn your craft. Unused skills fade quickly. Learn your position, like you mentioned, before you get in that position. Our training in a fire service, this is why I do what I do. I travel around the country and even to our naval bases where they have fire departments in Europe, Canada. I go all over the place and I teach teams how to prepare before they get in the position. Because once you're there, it's too late. You can't show up at the fire and say, we never trained for this, but let's figure out how to do it now. No, it's too late.
Right.
Train for it so you're ready for when that day comes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the idea, the whole with this be best you thing was, you know, in order to lead others, you have to have the various areas of your life kind of as balanced as possible.
Yeah.
Can't control everything. But you know, the same thing is in at 10, 9, 10, 11 years old, they're learning baseball. But when they're going to be 25, what I don't even know what the minuscule percent will get to the major leagues, but the rest of them will take that into the business world or things like that. So what they're learning in that baseball game is, again, you don't know, you know, in the retail business, you don't know who's on the other side of that counter. They're being rude to you, or they're being frustrated with you, or they're being very demanding about whatever you're serving them. And you're like, what a jerk, you know. And Chick-fil-A always had a great video where you wish there was a bubble over their head and it just said, you know, just lost your father.
Well, listen, and that comes with empathy, and that's what I'm trying to teach the kids. But you're right. I talk about that a lot too. You don't know what's happening in somebody's life. And here's the thing about empathy. Empathy pretty much reveals itself in close proximity, meaning this: the further you are away from kind of trying to understand a person, trying to see things through their perspective, the easier it is to judge that person. And that's why I told them this story about maybe this boy just lost somebody and wanted to pitch to honor them. Because now you can have empathy and you could say, well, maybe that's not true, but maybe there is something to this. So, you know, you don't, I tell the story about in the book about the lady that's in a public space, sitting alone, enjoying a book, enjoying her old time, an elderly woman, when a young father walks up with two young kids, and they're a little bit loud and rambunctious and kind of disruptive, to a point where the woman she wanted that quiet time back, says, excuse me, but can you please get control of your children? To which he replies, I'm so sorry. It's just that their mother passed away a week ago. And it's the first time I saw them laughing and playing that I didn't have the heart to tell them to sit down and be quiet. And it changes the story. And there's another side to that story too, because, you know, you might think, well, that was rude of that woman to say that. Well, what if that woman was reading a love letter from her husband that just passed away?
So many connections, so many moments.
Everybody you meet is either in a crisis, just got out of a crisis, or heading towards a crisis. And you can also say everybody you meet is either in a victory, just got out of a victory, or is heading towards a victory. I don't think either one of them are a right or wrong perspective. I think they're both pretty accurate. But when somebody calls me mad, you know, there's two things that I think. And number one is I want to let them vent because I don't know what's happening in their life. But number two, I can also tell you that people will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. And so there's a part of me that will say, well, hold on, back up. I understand you're upset, and I want to help you through this, but let's just be respectful to each other. So just tell me what you're upset about, and let's talk about what we could do to make it better. And I've had those conversations with people to where their whole tone changed. And then they said,
I mean, step out right there. They're not really seeing it from the outside perspective. You know, we this idea of working smarter, not harder. I've always had a problem with that, because I'm like, when I was told that, I'm like, does that mean I'm dumb, or I don't know what I don't know? So one of the things that we say here is learn to work smarter, always work hard. And kind of a couple of things I was listening to, everyone is so focused on the job and the task and working hard, and their heads are down and they're just plowing ahead, you know? And while they're doing it, they're getting the job done. And then it's what's next, and then what's next. and they're missing all the peripheral. And then the biggest thing that I see in my training is teaching them to do the task is not easy, right? But it's not hard. The hardest part is teaching the person and understanding that person, their emotions, where they're coming from, their perspective, their opinions. I
Yeah.
was just listening to a book called I can't even think of it, but I was going for my walk, and it was just telling a story about this one competitor in CrossFit and how she was you know competing against her competitors. And the coach said, well, why are you competing against your competitors? You compete against your last effort, because if the competitor is 5 seconds faster than you on paper, right, you've already lost. But what
Right.
about the person who's 5 seconds slower than you? If you're focusing on them, either one of those can win and end it or lose. But if you focus in on your effort and beating your time and not worried about what everybody else is thinking, back to what you started the whole conversation off today, your performance will then be, not all the time, of course, but will be then you're not against somebody else, you're against yourself, which is becoming the best version of yourself. And that's
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Be the best you. And think about this. Think about, I remember watching this kid, Jason Nolf. He was a Penn State wrestler, I think 2 or 3-time national champion, phenomenal wrestler. I watched this kid wrestle, and I wrestled from the age of 7 till I graduated high school. And this kid does things I didn't even know were possible. And one day he's wearing a shirt that says 1% improvement movement. And when somebody asked him about it, he says his goal every day is to become 1% better. And I look at that and I'm thinking, he's so good right now. He's so dominant. When I was watching him wrestle in college, he's so dominant. And I thought he was dominant before he even thought of getting 1% better and continuing to get 1% better and continuing to get. And what if we all had that mindset? See, when people talk about chasing perfection, I've never obtained perfection in any area of my life that I'm aware of. So I don't ever try to even chase it because the standard's too high. But I've constantly chased improvement. I constantly chased this idea of getting better. So it's not about perfection. It's more about improvement. It's more about just getting a little bit better. And think about this: if you're part of a team,
Right.
and if you got together and you said every single time, like I've had this conversation with my firefighters, so I should explain it this way. And I've had this conversation with these baseball players. Every time we come to work in the fire department, I want to be a better version of the team we were the last time we were together. So it's not about chasing perfection. It's about chasing progress. And here's the interesting thing too about the word progress. Progress is a powerful word. If you really think about it, if you're really trying to identify like what's the key to happiness, man, I don't know, but I can tell you what makes me happy. Progress makes me happy.
Wow. Yeah.
Progress, knowing that whatever it is I'm aiming for, you talked about balance a moment ago, in my personal life, in my professional life, as a writer, as a speaker, as a coach, as a firefighter, as a husband, as a father. If I'm getting better, I'm happy. When I'm not getting better, I could be the most miserable person you'll ever see
Sure.
because I'm disappointed in myself. I feel like I'm stuck in a rut. Why is it I always have to be working on a project, John? It always has to be another book. It doesn't even matter if I got 3 books on my computer. I have no idea if I'll ever find a publisher for them. I've never looked for a publisher. I know when the time is right, I'll say now is the time for that book. It just happened to me with this children's book. That children's book's been written for 20 years. And I finally said, now's the time.
Okay.
And just kind of but that was also part of what happened when the COVID pandemic hit. I went from speaking, like I said, 50 times a year to, thankfully we found this virtual medium and I started speaking again after about 4 or 5 months. But prior to this, everything got canceled.
Right.
I sat in my office at home and you want to talk about becoming miserable. I'm thinking progress makes me happy and I got nothing happening right now. So what we did is every single day we're virtual learning. And then every single day I'm taking my kids down to the ball field and we're playing baseball
Right.
every day for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And here's what's interesting. In the field next to us, I'm not going to tell anybody where it's at because I don't want anybody going there this off season, because in the field next, there's 2 fields, and in the field next to us were 2 professional baseball players. And, one of them being Jacob deGrom, but professional baseball players are pitching and hitting off each other when me and my boys are on another field. And the interesting thing about this is I tell my boys, and I might listen, my boys have my genetics. I don't think they're making pro baseball one day, but who knows? Maybe they'll play in college. I don't know.
Sure.
But I tell them, look at what you're doing right now. And look who else is doing it. And none of their friends are around. And I'm sure some of their friends are active doing things too. Don't get me wrong. But the point is, a lot of their friends are home on their iPads. And they're out here doing the same thing professional athletes are doing during the pandemic, which is making progress.
Right.
1% improvement. And think about if we all implemented that in our lives. If we're all working on a project, if we're all getting better, and if we all are not competing against anybody but who we were yesterday. To me, that's the key. No,
and I love it. I love that. That whole idea of the compound effect and what it can do negatively and positively, right?
Yep.
The compound effect of not eating correctly, compound effect of whatever bad habit you have versus a good habit you have. But I think it's, when people are chasing perfection, or is it really afraid of failing, which I love the fact that, and the reason I went back to your 10-0, and I think we talked, my daughter had a lot of success, and, when they finally lost the game, she handled it way better than I did, by the way, which is awesome, but you recognize now they needed that loss at that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were just winning too much. But the idea of chasing progress than perfection, because I think when you chase perfection, I'm not, because then you're like, well, yeah, but you don't want people to be soft, or you don't want to hurt people's feelings. I'm not talking about that disappointment, but chasing perfection all the time rather than progress, you'll probably reach perfection a lot quicker when you're chasing the progress than, and it's that goal and then the plan to get to that goal, without that. And that's another whole podcast I love to talk to you about. But the other thing is, I'm looking at, I don't want to keep you any longer, but I definitely want to talk to you about the new book, Sprinkles, which, the business I'm in, we do a lot of sprinkling. But Sprinkles the dog, can you, I can't wait to get it. Actually, can you order it yet?
No, not yet. No. Here's what's interesting about it. Well, first of all, it's funny you bring this up because Paul Combs, the illustrator.
Oh, yes.
He just sent me this. Check this out. This was a big version of the book. I don't know if you can see. And he signed it for me. Yeah, he's a tremendous artist, but that's the cover of the book.
Okay.
See, being a person who writes books on leadership and team development, like Step Up and Lead and Step Up Your Teamwork, and It's Time to Step Up, all these books that I focus on. It all starts at the foundation of everything we just talked about: being better, believing in yourself, all that stuff. What Sprinkles was, and this was something, like I mentioned, was written over 20 years ago. I sat down one day and I just turned on my computer and I wrote the story. It's just a children's book, start to finish, about this little dog from a big city that's alone, that has a dream of becoming a fire dog. And although he's a Dalmatian, he has one spot, he's undersized, has a weak bark and all those things. And when he decides that he wants to be a fire dog, he has to overcome his own physical limitations, his own self-doubt, and the critical corner mutts that never leave their corner, but tell everybody else that they can never leave their corners either.
This isn't a kid's book.
It's not a kid's book. That's the point.
No, I'm sure it is, because I think they're going to get a lot of it, but I can give this to probably pretty much everybody I know.
That's the point, though. That's the point. Is he has to find something within himself. Wow. And there's so many things that happen in this story. It's really cute, but there's so many things that happen in this story that he hears one positive thing and he just kind of focuses on that and says, okay, this is what the fireman said. And
Yeah.
that's good enough. Even though the other one said he's too small, he's too weak, he can't bark. One of them says something positive to him, and it causes him to just try a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And it's a really cute story. I'm excited for it. It's not available yet. By the time I would say, we're right now we're recording this in middle of May 2021. So I would say by June or
Okay.
mid-June 2021, it's going to be available to order, and you'll just be able to Google it and find it anywhere. Amazon. Paul and I are both firefighters, as you know. So we had decided to keep this book home, which is Fire Engineering Books and Videos. So if you were to go to Fire Engineering Books and just type in Sprinkles the Fire Dog or my name or Paul's name, it'll come
Okay.
up.
So all right. So, and I'll talk to you about that, but to make sure I get that out to everybody, that's where they can buy the books rather than at the Amazons.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would go there because you'll get, a good deal right there off Fire Engineering. But or you can go to my website or Paul's website, which is just my name, frankviscuso.com.
Paul's like, well, one, I had the one calendar, which is how I found you.
Right.
And then I know that he's done a bunch of other stuff, but
Paul is he is ridiculously talented.
oh,
I mean,
crazy. It's amazing.
matter of fact, as I'm talking to you, I'll change my background real quick for anyone that's watching to some of his illustrations. Like here's one of his illustrations from the book.
Yeah, great. Come here, you guys see this here.
Just I'll move aside so you can check out the detail on it.
No, that was thing that impressed me so much, and not just that, but all the quotes and the little life lessons you have. So this is the artist that does all his stuff and does the calendar, and Frank writes a lot of the little quotes and the stories behind the illustrations. And that's
so it's Paul Combs. The detail in his drawings is just it's
very cool,
absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and not only that, so you have to understand something about Paul. Now I'm going to talk about my friend here because I think it's important. Paul, you want to talk about a guy who is not only given a God-given gift of the ability to draw and create the way he has, but he has chosen to utilize those talents to give us all a gift.
Yeah.
Because he has the ability through his calendars that you mentioned earlier, his drawn by fire calendars or his drawn by fire books. He has the ability with an illustration and a couple of sentences to tell an entire story. And when he agreed to illustrate this book for me, I don't know if I was ever more excited about any project I've ever worked on because I'm such a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, I'm having him on my podcast tomorrow. And we're going to be talking a little bit about him and where his, I guess, drive comes from.
Sure.
But he's a guy that, like anybody, hears something about life. When he sits down, he's a firefighter and he's drawing illustrations or cartoons, whatever you want to call them, about good and bad things in the fire service. And when you do that, sometimes I'm sure, I've never talked about this, but I'm sure even leaders in his own organization would be upset with him because they think that he's drawing negative stuff about them because that's his circle.
Sure.
Just like when you write a book about leadership, maybe you have people that are leading teams that you're on that might think, wait, this guy thinks he knows more about leadership than me. And sometimes you can create conflict in your life when you try to step outside of familiarity, outside of your comfort zone and break away from a pack. Sometimes you have critics, or all the time, you're going to have critics. You're going to have people that try to tell you, you can't do this. You're not good enough. That little voice, that the negative voice we all have in our head came from somewhere. It came from somewhere, and it come from other people, and you just have to learn to tune it off. I had a friend that used to do this. He used to, one time I physically saw him reach up to his head, look like he grabbed something from the side of his head, like out of his ear, and threw it.
Yeah.
And I looked and I watched him do it, and I didn't think much about it. Weeks later, I see him do it again. He reaches up and he does that. I go, what are you doing? You got something in your ear? I saw you. He goes, no, I had a negative thought in my head. I was just plucking it out. I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, I learned that from my mentor a long time ago. When you have a negative thought, something telling you you're not good enough, I just throw it away.
That's crazy. My wife just says something. She says, whatever faith people are, but she says, Jesus, take the wheel. And then she takes this negative stuff and she goes, I don't have room up here. for negativity and negative people. And she literally talks herself about removing that person from her headspace. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the, well, I mean, you circled right back to the very beginning, and that is, again, what your purpose is. And, too many people go through life just working, and they're afraid to take a risk, or they're afraid to ask for that raise, and they're always working hard for other people, but they're not really taking the time to work on themselves. And that's why I think podcasts are so important, because Zig Ziglar, I guess you've heard it before, what is it? Automobile University, where you can, in the old days, you used to throw the cassette in the car, but when you're walking, you're doing the lawn, you're painting, you're trying to tune out whatever you want to tune out, you throw one of these podcasts in from a numerous number of unbelievable people out there. You're learning and you're growing. And I think that's what leaders, if they don't do it, they're dead, so constantly learning.
None of us have arrived.
I don't want to go. First of all, this has been awesome. And I will get this out, and I'm a huge fan of your material. I definitely love to share it. I'll share not only your books with the people I come in contact with, but I'll also have the people, some other people get in touch with you directly. Is the best way to potentially book you as an interviewee, correct?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can. I mean, listen, I'm easy to find. I'm all over social media. On Facebook, I have a Step Up and Lead page.
Okay.
Facebook's weird because I reach my friend limit.
Yeah.
But on Step Up and Lead, and it's easy to find. There's 60 or 70,000 fans of the page, but that just direct message me through there, or my website, frankviscuso.com. Also commonvalor.com, the name of one of my books. They both lead to the same site, and all my contact information's there. Very easy to get a hold of.
Good. And then I'll share that so people can get in touch with you. And other than that, I mean, this is perfect. Being the best version of yourself. As you can see behind me, I wasn't even a good reader. That's another whole story. I wasn't a very good student either. I was a D- student, or a D+ student, maybe D+ student.
But you probably know that A students in high school ended up working for B students that were managing companies that C and D students now run and own.
I've heard that quite often, so I feel good. But I've become an avid reader, and I'm listening and I'm reading, and my brain is just I'm so excited about learning new content, meeting new people, and I've been blessed to be able to have this platform to get people like yourselves. I definitely going to reach out to Mr. Combs as well and order a couple of his calendars. I didn't see is there a 2021 one?
Yes, actually, 2021 he did with Mike and Ann Galliano, which is they wrote a book on firefighter marriage, and it would probably appeal to people that are outside the fire service as well.
Okay.
But if you ever wanted a great couple talking about working together and supporting each other on your podcast, that couple's fantastic too. Mike and Ann Galliano, they're out in Seattle.
Okay.
And
I will do that. I'll reach back out to you. And other than that, I thank you, sir, once again. And I literally could go on for another couple hours, but maybe at another time when spring.
Listen, we live close enough to each other. We can just go grab a cup of coffee or a beer or something and just get together and talk anyway.
I would really like that. And I'd love
to
get to meet Greg as well. So
that would be awesome.
All right. So this is Coach Hughes here, and this is the Be Best You podcast. So you can be the best version of yourself to lead others. And Frank, I want to thank you once again. And check out Step Up to Lead. Tons of content out there, and also his podcast as well. So signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.